Hello and welcome to Trial TV Live. I am the Squeegee of Justice, joined here by my paralegal, Superball. How's everybody doing today? Thank you so much for joining us. How are you today? Literally right as I went live, she decided to jump.
Hello and welcome to
hold on a sec.
TV Live.
And we're back. So, how's everybody doing today? Noreen, good morning to you. Brett, let's see, you're only here for a bit until you need to leave for a 10 o'clock appointment. Could someone kidnap me and keep me here so I don't have to go to the dentist? Please, please. Yes, Brett, stay with us. Stay with us. Don't go to that. Well, I guess you have to. It's one of those things you have to do, right? Hey, Wendy, good to see you. You think Lori will be a bit more argumentative with this last hurrah? She might be. She very well might be. Golden Girl, saying good morning. Only Fan, saying good morning. Fala's on Laffy Taffy, Dr. Pepper, and a cracker. Fourth cup of coffee. You go, Fala, you go. Good morning to you, therapist. Good to see you. Alice saying good morning. Ruby is a member today. How about that? Whoop, whoop. That's always nice. Iris, good to see you. Baka, popping in to tap and say good morning. Thank you so much. Noreen saying good morning as well. Let's see. You were going to make some eggs this morning, but someone decided to have me up early and take his time outside sniffing every blade of grass in the 2-acre area. Yeah, Iggy used to do that. Not only would he sniff every blade of grass, but then he would try to mark it. So, I know, I feel your pain. I know what you're going through. Now I just have cattails in my face, and this little one getting settled in. All right, so let's continue on. We're with our pre-trial prep. Sorry, let me get my... Sorry about that. Our pre-trial prep for Lori Daybell. She will be going on trial for the alleged attempted shooting, murder, killing, deletion of Brandon Boudreaux. I gotta get myself situated here. Her trial starts June 2nd. Today is May 29th, so just a few days away. And this took place October 2nd of 2019. And if you know anything about Lori, you know that her fourth husband, Charles Vallow, was shot and deleted by her brother Alex there, seen in the middle between Melani and Lori on the bottom. And then September, Lori's kids, Tylee and JJ, went missing. And then here we are, October, somebody shooting at Brandon. Then Alex, he ends up passing away in December. Melanie ends up getting remarried to Ian, who we're going to hear from today. So today's episode is going to include testimony from Lori's trial last year in the deletion of her kids, Tylee and JJ. So first up, we're going to hear from Brandon. Then we're going to hear from Melanie. Then we're going to hear from Ian. So Melanie and Ian Pawlowski, they got married again after like 2 weeks, arranged marriage, but they're still together, so kudos to them. But first up is going to be Brandon. Now this is Lori's first trial in Idaho last year. So let me go ahead and let's get started. Now there's if I don't know if you guys know or not, but there was no cameras, so this is audio only. Oh, here, let me pull myself up. This is going to be audio only. And this is coming from East Idaho News. So I know you guys are familiar with Nate Eaton, and he does great work. So this is their audio, their recording, and then it'll be just a static visual. So this is all we're going to see. There were no cameras. It was not streamed visually, but we do have the audio. So let's settle back in. And, oh, hey, Trial Junkies, how are you? Good morning to you. Ember and Slim and Superball, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. All right. Objection, it is so early. Yes, I know. All right. Yes, Brandon is still alive, thankfully. Okay. Oh, let's see. If there's one trial she needs to be responsible for, it's this one, because he's still alive. Yeah. All right, so settle in. There's not going to be a visual; it's just going to be audio. So settle in and let's check this out. This is Brandon Boudreaux on the stand against Lori Daybell last year.
The state can call its next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Brandon Boudreaux.
And who will be conducting direct examination?
I will, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, thank you, Mr. Boudreaux. If you'll come around this way and be seated in the seat to my left. All right, just a few quick instructions. We're making a record of the case, so please make verbal responses to any questions. Say yes or no instead of shaking your head, for example. Please try to avoid talking at the same time anyone is questioning you. And with that in mind, Ms. Smith, you can inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Can you introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the grand jury, please?
Yeah, my name's Brandon Boudreaux. I'm from Mesa, Arizona.
Okay. Sir, could you spell your last name, please?
Boudreaux.
Okay. Mr. Boudreaux, are you married?
I am.
How many times have you been married?
Twice.
Okay. Let's...
Scoot up to the microphone.
Sure, sorry.
Okay. And I think it'll help if you just lean just a little forward. It might be a little uncomfortable, but lots of people need to hear. Okay. All right. And you said you'd been married twice. Let's talk about your first marriage. Who were you married to?
Melanie Cope at the time. She became Boudreaux.
Okay. And with your marriage to Melanie Boudreaux, did you have any children?
I did.
How many?
4.
Okay. And what are their ages?
I have Braxton, who is 13, Brighton, who's 9, Blake, who's 7, and Breeze, who just turned 6.
Okay. How long were you married to Melanie?
A little over 10 years.
Okay. What year did you marry?
2008.
Okay. And during that time, did you meet her family?
I did, yes.
Okay. Can you tell us who you remember or who you had relations with?
I mean, she has a big family, so her mom passed away when she was young, so I met her birth mom's family, her dad's family, and then her stepmom's family.
When you say her birth mom's family, what are their names?
The Coxes.
Okay. And if you could just scooch just a little closer. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry.
I know, it's all right. And so the Coxes, what are their names, please?
Barry and Janice Cox are her, would that be her grandparents? And then Adam Cox, Summer Shiflett, Lori Vallow, and Alex Cox.
Okay, and those 4 people are who to Melanie and therefore were to you?
They would be her aunts and uncles.
Okay, therefore your aunts and uncles in-laws?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you spend much time with Lori's aunts and uncles? I mean, Melanie's aunts and uncles?
Yes. We, before we got married, I met them in Arizona. And we would spend, most holidays together. We would, when I first, right after I was married, I moved down to Arizona. I actually lived with Lori for a while, and her husband Charles.
Okay. So when you say Lori, do you see the person you recognize and knew through marriage as Lori Vallow here in the courtroom today?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Can you please point her out and describe an item of her clothing?
She's sitting over on my right with glasses on.
Okay. Your Honor, may the what table, just so that the record's real clear?
The second table.
Okay. How many people are at it?
There's 3.
Okay. Your Honor, may the record reflect he's identified the defendant, please?
Yes, that's reflected now in the record.
Thank you. Now, you said you'd spent time in Ms. Vallow's home with Charles, correct?
Yes.
All right. And at that time, was he her husband?
Yes.
All right. How well did you get to know them?
Very well. We just spent a lot of time together.
Okay. When you say we, what does that mean?
Me and my family.
Okay.
My wife at the time and my children.
Okay. And did you get to know her children, Ms. Vallow's children?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. What were their names?
There's Colby, Tylee, and JJ.
And when you say you got to know them, did your kids also interact with their cousins?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. They spent a lot of time together. My oldest, Braxton, was pretty close with JJ. I think, JJ looked up to him a lot, and they spent a lot of time together.
Okay. So would they spend any time in each other's homes?
Yeah. JJ wasn't. He wasn't super interactive as he had autism, so he wasn't always incredibly interactive. But he seemed to love hanging out with my kids, and specifically Braxton and Brighton. As he got older, he started to be able to interact a little more, and he would always. He kind of had 2 fascinations. One was with traveling. He always said everybody always got him suitcases. He had suitcases everywhere. And the other was coming and hanging out with Braxton. He would always ask for that, and they had a great time when they spent time together.
Okay. And what about Tylee?
I spent a lot of time with Tylee as well. I watched her grow up. I met her when she was just little, and then got to watch her kind of grow into a teenager.
Okay. Did you have any special sort of religious connection to Tylee?
Yeah. In our church, when you turn 8, you can get baptized if you choose. And so when she turned 8, she decided to get baptized, and for whatever reason, Charles wasn't comfortable doing the baptism. And so they had asked me, and I of course said yes, I would be honored to baptize her.
And you say in your church, what church is that? What's your faith?
I go to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay. And was Tylee baptized into that church?
She was, yes.
Okay. Were you and your wife members of the Church of Latter-day Saints?
Yeah, we were.
Okay. And to your knowledge, what about Mr. and Mrs. Vallow?
Yes, as well.
Okay. Did you, what about the relationship sort of that you observed between Melani Boudreaux and Lori Vallow? What was that like?
Yeah. Melanie, she kind of had an affinity towards Lori. She she always kind of, she looked at her kind of less like an aunt figure and almost more like a mom figure. She was always wanting to be like her.
Did you get along with Charles?
Yeah, really well. Charles and I both had a passion for sales and business, and we connected well in that. And we just both loved our families, and so it was very easy for us to spend time together.
So it wasn't uncommon that the Boudreaux and the Vallows would get together and get along.
Yeah, we would. There was years where they lived by us, and we would usually see each other maybe once a month or more. And then there was times when they lived further away, but we would travel to each other's homes, stay in each other's homes when we went, and it wasn't uncommon to spend a week, or more at each other's homes.
Okay. Did you spend holidays together?
Yes.
Okay. What was the last Christmas that the Boudreaux and the Vallows spent together?
That would have been in 2018.
Okay. Was that a typical Christmas? For the two couples?
No, it was definitely different at that point.
Why?
When you get really close with people, you kind of become comfortable and you let your guard down, and your body language is more relaxed and more comfortable, and it just, everything kind of, I don't know how to, it can be so fluid. You can see each other and pick right up where you left off. But everybody feels like they know everything about each other, almost like it's just, you're so, you know each other so well that it's like memory, if you will. But, and that one, it was very, well, there was Melanie Gibb who was there, who I'd never met before, and never heard anything about. So
let me stop you there and let me ask. So you said it wasn't the same as before. Were there other people there for this holiday?
Yeah, Melanie Gibb was there with her family, who I didn't really know her, and the rest of us were all, it just didn't feel, we didn't feel close. The body language was very, in the way that the conversations flowed and everything just felt very distant.
Now, around this time, were you and your wife active in your church or in your ward?
Yeah.
Okay. And had you been active with the Vallows in your faith?
Could you maybe expound on that?
Sure. Had you and the Vallows shared that faith and shared activities at church? Yeah. We definitely had done things at church together. Okay. And did your wife's and/or let's take it one at a time. Did your wife's activity in religious events increase around this time, around that Christmas?
Yeah, a little bit before it actually, but.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So when we first got married, my wife's kind of religious level was kind of low. She didn't enjoy going to church. It wasn't something that she. It was more me pushing going to church. I felt like I got like a little bit of a benefit from it, and she didn't really enjoy it that much. And so for most of our marriage, it was kind of me pushing going to church. But kind of in the fall of that year.
We're talking 2018.
Yeah, sorry. In the fall of 2018, she started getting really passionate about going to church and about different ideas within the church. She started going to these things she was calling firesides.
When you say calling firesides, are firesides within the LDS faith? Are those a common practice?
So in the LDS faith, the way our setup is organized is our congregation's called a ward, and there's usually some leaders inside the ward, and then there's a bigger congregation called a stake. And inside of that, usually ecclesiastical leaders organize the regular Sunday events, but you also occasionally will have like they call them firesides, but like a special event that focuses on something around our belief. And in this case,
So were the events that your wife attending called firesides sort of part of the organized part of your church?
No, and that's I guess what started kind of sticking out to me was she would go to these things that she was calling firesides, but they weren't put on by the church. They didn't have any ecclesiastical connection. Like there wasn't anything like that, but they were using that term. And she was coming home with kind of different ideas of what she was going to do to be a faithful member of the church.
Okay. Was the defendant at some of these firesides?
Yes.
Okay. Did Charles go to any of these fireside talks?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And were you invited?
No, I had a discussion with Melanie, and she told me that these were her thing, and she didn't want me to go, and it was very clear that I wasn't welcome to come.
To your memory, who was attending some of these, extra church activities?
Besides Melanie and Lori.
Besides Melanie and Lori.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. It sounds like he doesn't have information as to who was there. Any information that he would have gotten would have been hearsay.
I'll sustain that. I think there's inadequate foundation.
Were you aware of who attended some of these events?
Not in the present, but afterwards, yes.
Okay. Did any of the people who later went to those told you they had attended those?
Yeah, I had a conversation with Melanie Gibb later where she told me she went to those.
Okay.
Again, it's hearsay.
And that will be stricken as hearsay.
Okay.
Statement of what another said.
All right. But you weren't allowed to go to these talks?
Correct.
All right. And when you say some of the ideas your wife came back with, did they center around particular topics?
Yeah, the things that were she felt a need to go to the temple every single day, which is a little bit extreme. And like in our faith, we believe in going to the temple, and I think regular attendance can be good. It's something where you go and kind of practice ritualistically like your faith and show God that you are trying to keep promises to Him. And so it's a good thing to do, but is
it unusual to go every single day?
Very, and it got even more extreme. Like she would have to go during like our family trips to Disneyland or things like that just were very, very overwhelming. She had to focus on this idea that like the world could end soon, and we had a disagreement about buying $10,000 worth of food storage right away. Things that just seemed extreme.
Okay. And so in this situation, you've been to Christmas, and your wife is participating in these extra religious events. Did that affect the situation between sort of the Boudreaux and the Vallows going into 2019?
Yeah, I guess it got a little bit harder for us.
Why?
Excuse me.
Do you need some water?
Yeah, actually.
Do you mind, Your Honor, if he takes a second?
Not at all. It's there for the witness.
Thanks.
Can you ask me that question again?
In going into 2019, did the situation between the Boudreaux and the Vallows, was it affected by this religious activity or the sort of atmosphere at Christmas?
Yeah, it just kind of got more bizarre. Into 2019, in January we got a call and text messages from Lori and Charles that Lori was accusing him of cheating and infidelity.
how did you respond to that situation?
Well, it was kind of complicated.
Why?
For me, because initially when all this started happening, I wasn't really I wasn't even aware of it the night that it happened. And when I became aware of it, it just seemed odd. There was. It seemed kind of like it just went from 0 to 100 really quick. Like Lori had removed all the money from their account. She had.
So let me stop you there and break it up. So did that affect the situation with your family?
Yeah, it did. My wife was very adamant that we weren't going to take sides.
And did you respect Melanie's wishes on that?
Yeah, I did my best. Yes.
Okay. And did there come a time during this period that you would see Lori in the late winter, early spring of 2019?
I didn't see Lori very much at all, but I did see Charles.
Okay. So how often would you see Charles?
He would bring JJ over to play a couple times. He had JJ. Lori wasn't with JJ at the time. I don't know where she went actually.
So Charles would come over to your house with JJ?
Yeah, and
so what would JJ do at the house?
He would play with Braxton and just kind of get a release. JJ was always very high energy. He had to lock everything up when he came so that he couldn't get out of the house or get himself into trouble. So it'd be kind of thorough. It was like having a really big kid that doesn't know how to make certain decisions yet. And so it was a lot of work when he'd come over, but you just loved him, so you did it. But so Braxton kind of always knew that his duty was to play with JJ and entertain him and keep him kind of busy so that he would get into less trouble or get into less things.
Got it. And so did you spend time with Charles when JJ was there?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Let's fast forward to that summer. Did you have occasion to go to a trip or visit your wife's family in Utah?
Yeah, I did. So I after meeting with Charles those couple times and kind of seeing him go through some painful process. I according as I promised Melanie, I kept asking him not to come over and doing my best to help him, but trying to create distance. And so we actually that summer went out and went to Utah to my wife's sister was going to get married, and we were staying at my in-laws' house.
Okay. Did anything unusual happen at your in-laws' house?
Yeah. So this was in June, and to explain it, on June 23rd, my grandfather passed away of a heart attack, and I got a little bit. His health wasn't great, but it was still a surprise, and so on the 25th, my mom called me to tell me about the funeral. And I had this conversation with Melanie where I told her when it was, and she told me she wasn't going to go to the funeral. She didn't want anything to do with it. And it created kind of a
disagreement between you two?
Yeah, a disagreement. And in that process, this what I thought we were arguing about with her not wanting to go to my grandpa's funeral, not wanting my kids to go, kind of escalated into something completely different. It just kind of cascaded into a bunch of stuff that didn't make any sense and had nothing to do with me or to do with this.
All right. And when you say to do with this, did it lead to some accusations against you?
Yeah. After I took a little break after I felt so emotional about my grandpa. I walked for a while. I came back, and I really wanted to break through and have a honest conversation with her. So I just came and apologized for my feelings and just told her that I would accept her not going to my grandpa's funeral. And I just begged her to talk to me about what was going on and why things were so hard. And she said that if I was honest, then we could work through things. And she said God had revealed some things to her. And so I just said, let's talk about them. Like, what is it? What's between us? And she started out by accusing me of hacking her Aunt Lori's computer.
Had you hacked her Aunt Lori's computer?
No, okay. I don't know anything about hacking, and that was not something I did. It was really illogical, which stuck out to me and frustrated me because I didn't know why it had anything to do with what we were fighting about.
Okay. How did that conversation end?
It escalated some more hours, and then I kept trying to talk through it with her. Eventually, her father got involved, and we talked to him, and she wouldn't talk to him with me, but I talked to him, and she was saying she didn't feel safe with me at the house, and she accused me of being a homosexual, which is another thing that didn't make any sense, but Charles had been telling me previously she was going to say.
Okay.
Lori was going to convince her.
Okay, so she made those various accusations. How did it end?
It ended with her going to sleep and me feeling kind of overwhelmed. And finally, I texted Charles and Lori that I was frustrated with them, that I felt like this was on them. And
did you ever hear back from the defendant?
Lori never answered or responded. Charles talked to me.
Okay. Did you, without getting into what somebody told you, what day was this?
June 25th and in past midnight, so into the 26th.
Okay. Did you have additional, and it's 26th of June, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have additional conversations with Charles in the following few days?
I did. I talked to him again after I kind of worked through some stuff with my dad and my ecclesiastical leader, and I went to a counseling session. I called him.
Sorry, you're the best.
Oh, sorry. With my dad, with my ecclesiastical leader, our bishop is what we call him, and then I went to a counseling session. Just feeling a little overwhelmed. And then I called Charles that night and talked to him. That was the last time I talked to him. And just, I felt kind of maybe like he was the only person who knew what I was going through, because he'd gone through all these things earlier. And just told him I was sorry for not being there.
Because you'd kept your distance at your wife's request.
Yeah.
Okay. You said that's the last time you talked to him. You didn't talk to him again before he died?
No.
Okay. After Charles died, did you have contact with the defendant, Lori Vallow?
No.
Okay. After Charles died, did you have contact with JJ and Tylee?
No.
Okay. How did it progress for you in your relationship with your wife? Did you eventually reconcile, or did you divorce?
No, we ended up divorcing.
Okay. When did you divorce?
We did a mediated divorce, so we started the process after I got back from my grandpa's funeral. She left. She just took our car home, so I took my kids and flew home. And when I got home, she let me know that we had to do a mediated divorce. We had to do a divorce, and so that would have been in July. I started going through the process, and so we met. I found a mediator after consulting some people and hearing that would be the lowest conflict way to divorce. I tried to follow through with that, so we went through that process, and that started. I can't say exactly which day, but probably around the 1st of July.
Okay. And then did you continue working on the divorce and separation through that summer and fall?
I did, yes.
Okay. And where were you living in the end of September and beginning of October of 2019?
At the end of September, I was selling my house, my home that we had bought together. I had moved Melanie to a rental property. And then as soon as I sold my house, I got a rental property as well for the time being, just to try to create some stability. I rented a property right back in where my old ward was, where I had lived before.
Okay. And so how did that situation work out? Were you able to share custody?
It was complicated. She was just so standoffish, so it was really hard for me to, like, when I was showing the house, we had agreed that I would go see my kids and that I could put them to bed each night, but she wouldn't actually let me in her home. She said she was scared of me. And so I didn't get a lot of time with my kids up until I sold my house, at which time I got my house ready really fast, my new home, so I could have my kids in there. And
did there something occur at the beginning of October of 2019 that affected that situation?
Yeah.
What?
October 2nd, someone parked in front of my house and shot at me.
Okay. What had you done that morning?
Yeah, I'm going to object to relevancy. I don't know what this has to do with the case at hand.
May we approach?
A quick sidebar with counsel on this issue. All right, counsel, there's a ruling under advisement. The court's going to review some previous research and rulings I've made in the case to determine this, so this will be the time we'll use for our mid-afternoon break. We are going to go till 3:30 today, so we'll try to keep this break to around 15 to 20 minutes to allow the jury to break as well, and then we'll come back on the record with additional questioning. So everyone please rise for the jury. All right. All right, thank you. We're going back on the record, case CR 22-211624, State of Idaho versus Lori and Vallow. There's been an objection raised that relates to issues that have previously been brought before the court in motions in limine and motions by the state in regards to 404B evidence. The court finds it appropriate to take up a argument and ruling on the issue at this point outside of the presence of the jurors who have been excused for a mid-afternoon break. So there was an objection raised by the defense. I'd like to hear the response from the state, and then I'll allow a rebuttal argument from the defense before making a ruling.
I'll try my microphone. And the court wants a out in public response in front of the witness?
Yes.
Okay. Happy to. Your Honor, the state believes that this is part of a common scheme and plan. The defendant, with her co-conspirators, conspired to cause the death of multiple individuals in her world. She is charged specifically with the death of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. She's charged with conspiracy on those issues. And the state's belief in the electronic evidence, the telephone evidence, the witness testimonies through those people who participated in these conversations clearly establish a conspiracy to remove individuals who were obstacles to her future life together with Chad Daybell, and to remove obstacles to their plan for this life together. The shooting of at and killing of spouses of individuals who were part of this group was part of this common scheme or plan. The financial benefit to Ms. Vallow-Daybell's niece at the death of her soon-to-be ex-husband would have helped finance some of the defendant's travels, lives, and movement on in the future. There will be multiple witnesses who discuss that the defendant talked to people that Melani Boudreaux and her money would take care of them, that Melani Boudreaux and her money would help aid the group's plans for the future, and fundamentally it is part of a common scheme or plan. It is far more probative than prejudicial. It is part and parcel. The other piece, just from logic in terms of the law enforcement involvement, the shooting at Mr. Boudreaux is what actively got law enforcement paying attention, what actively got law enforcement looking for JJ and Tylee, and it's core to the presentation of many of the law enforcement's assessments of evidence.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Thomas, the response from the defense.
Just so that I understand, the state is indicating that this is part of a common scheme or plan, and getting rid of spouses is part of the common scheme or plan. Judge, it seems like this is a stretch at best. We'd ask the court not to allow this evidence in. It doesn't, without further foundation, through all of these other text messages and whatnot. Mr. Boudreaux can be called after some of these things come in to testify, but at this point I don't think it's appropriate to allow him to testify about these things without any more foundation.
Your Honor, may I just briefly, this is a chicken or an egg thing. I guarantee you if the state offered those other items, the defense would be saying it's premature because we don't know what happened. And so in reality, we have the witness here. He had a relationship, and the state is abiding by the previous rulings of the court. We brought it to your attention in camera ahead of time. You've given us a ruling in limine, and we are following that ruling.
All right. Well, I do agree it is a chicken and an egg thing, as you mentioned. When looking at this evidence, the court has to consider Rule 404B because it's premised on what may be presented in court. Generally, it's brought up outside the presence of the jury and also in advance of trial. The parties have complied with that procedurally, and so we did have a closed hearing relating to this 404B issue back in February of this year, and on February 22nd, the court issued an oral ruling that as a preliminary matter, I would allow the evidence or not prohibit the evidence under Rule 404B, and also made findings related specifically to this particular witness and what is alleged to have occurred. I've considered whether or not the order of things should require more foundation before we go into it at this point, but I don't really see a better way other than to admonish and caution the state that at this point I'll permit the 404B evidence to be admitted. However, at this stage of the proceedings, there's not really a record that goes into the common scheme or plan in the detail that you've indicated. However, there was a proffer made by the state at the previous ruling, and again a proffer today that evidence will be forthcoming. So I'll overrule the objection and allow the evidence, but the, I guess, danger for the state there is if sufficient evidence does not come in later to support the allegations that take this outside of 404B, then we may have an issue with the jury having heard this testimony. So the court will rely on the proffers made today and previously in overruling that objection, and I'll allow this line of questioning based on that and my prior finding made at that February 22nd ruling that was briefed and argued by the parties before. So that'll be the court's decision on the evidentiary objection at this point. We'll now bring the jurors in, and just before I do that, I will advise and caution the witness here who, although you've heard a lot of legal argument here, you're still required to just tell only what you know from your own personal experience in answering these questions, and could be subject to further objections if you go outside of that based on anything you heard here in legal argument. So with that in mind, that's the court's ruling at this time. We'll have the jury returned, and then you can continue your examination, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Boudreaux, do you have water up there? Okay.
Well, while we listen to them type, I just want to thank everybody for coming in. We're watching Brandon Boudreaux testifying against Lori Daybell back in April of 2023. So this would be her first trial. Not sure why there's no talking and they're just typing right now, but we'll just hang tight. I'll do a little recap as well. Not an in-depth one, but I'll do a recap. Some of the highlights that we're hearing. And yes, Lori had 5 husbands, Kathy. Charles was her 4th. I'm going to try and fast forward a little bit here. Just hang tight. Okay, yeah, you're right, OnlyFan was probably waiting for the jury to come in.
You can continue your questioning. I'll remind the witness you're still under oath.
Mr. Boudreaux, you were telling us about being shot at on October 2nd of 2019. Do you remember that? All right, let's back up. Where'd you been that morning?
I had my kids, so when we woke up, I got them ready for school. My 2 older kids were in elementary school, so I dropped them off at their school. My 3rd youngest went to a daycare preschool, and then I dropped my very youngest off at their mom's house, Melanie.
Melanie Boudreaux's home?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what did you do after that?
After that, I drove to my gym where I worked out.
And this occurred down in Arizona, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then what did you do after going to the gym? Did you head home?
Yeah, so I left the gym and I drove home. As I was driving home, I lived on the second house in I would make a left-hand turn onto my street, and I was the second house in.
Okay, let me ask you, how long had you lived in that home?
Only a few days. Like I said, I sold my house previously. And in a rush to make sure that I got my kids, that coming weekend, I had just moved everything myself, and then two of my neighbors noticed me moving. I had just taken
Let me just stop you there. How long had you lived at that house?
only a few days.
Okay. And while you were at that, who knew you lived at that house?
Maybe 5 people.
Okay. And who were those 5?
My neighbors who helped me move, and Melanie, who I had to tell.
Okay. So you're heading home that morning, and you turn on the street. What happens next?
As I came around the corner, I noticed there was a Jeep parked right in front of my driveway. My driveway would have been like this, and the Jeep was just parked right directly in front of it. And as I was starting to drive towards it, and I would have had to make a left-hand turn into it, I noticed a few things that stood out to me. The first was that it was...
What were the things that you noticed?
Oh, yeah. I noticed that it was parked really closely, almost touching the van that had been parked there the previous several days. It had a Texas license plate, and the Jeep, it was a Jeep Wrangler, and Wranglers have a tire on the back of them, and there was no tire on this one. Instead, the window was kind of hanging open, but like the little tab things were like sitting on the outside of it.
Okay. So you see those things about the Jeep. What happens next?
As I drove forward, the window came up, and I saw a gun with what looked like a silencer, heard a bang, and my driver's side window shattered. And so my natural reaction, instead of turning left into my driveway, I drove an electric car, so it was very instant, but I just pushed the gas, and it just shot me forward.
Okay. What happened after your window is shot out?
I continued to drive, and when you're in a Tesla, the electric car, you let your foot off the gas, it brakes. And so I remember when I hit it, my phone flew forward. And then as I kind of came around the corner, I remember letting my foot off, and it came back, grabbed my phone. I called 911. I went around the corner, and I parked next to the public pool there for a second. And then I remember as I was talking to the 911 person, I saw the Jeep come around the corner, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I started to try to follow it. And then the person told me that was a bad idea, so I thought it, I'm not 100% sure which, but I went back over, and they instructed me to park in front of my house. So I parked in front of my house, and then police arrived.
Okay. Did you give the police the information on that Jeep?
I did, yes.
Okay. And did you follow up with law enforcement down in Arizona?
Yeah, after
So thanks. And so now my next question is, did you take any steps after cooperating with law enforcement to identify that Jeep?
I did, yes.
What did you do?
Well, after it took all day to go through, like, once this happened, but after a long amount of time in the process, I had met with a detective and talked to him about just thoughts that I had about what was going on. He was just asking me, trying to get a handle on it. And as I was thinking about that, I realized that Tylee had a Jeep that Charles had bought her with a Texas plate that looked exactly like that. And I knew the VIN number because Charles had given it to me, so I gave that to the police officer, to my detective.
Okay. What color was that Jeep?
It was a grayish green color.
Okay. And did the Jeep you saw had no tire on the back?
Correct.
Okay. Did you take any steps then also to provide it? I'm sorry, you told us you gave the VIN to law enforcement? Forgive me. How did you get that VIN?
Charles had given it to me previously.
Why would he give you a VIN?
I was an insurance agent at the time, and he had given it to me to run insurance across all of their different cars.
Okay. And so you provided that to law enforcement, correct?
I did, yes.
All right. What other steps, if any, did you take to follow up on that Jeep that you believe to be Tylee's Jeep and the shooting at you?
I had called and talked to Adam Cox and Zach Cox because they had also had concerns about everything going on. And
Okay. Other than talking to somebody, what other steps did you take?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you look at any information on the internet
About the Jeep?
or following up on the shooting at you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, after my shooting, I started to have my beliefs about who I thought did it, and I got concerned about the situation. And so I started thinking back to previous stuff that had happened. And I remembered that in these groups there were people who I didn't know, but I remember there was a bunch of emails Charles had sent me. So I went through and reread those.
Okay. And did you see any names in the emails that you were looking at? When you say those groups, you're talking the groups of people that your wife was meeting in these firesides?
Yeah. She was meeting a bunch of people that didn't necessarily said they were members of the church, but didn't have any necessary connection to the church. And in that process, some of them would, write books or do things, and she would get into some of this stuff. And I remember distinctly inside of these groups there was emails that were being sent with a group of them. And so I just went back to look at the emails Charles had sent me from there. And most of them came from Chad Daybell. And since I didn't know who he was, I started Googling his name.
Okay. And in that process of Googling his name, what did you see?
I was just going through some of the things that were there, and I saw on an obituary for a Tammy Daybell.
Okay. And after you saw that, did you take any steps to follow up on what you saw?
Yes. They made me really nervous because Charles...
Let me ask you the question now. What steps did you take?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Because of how I was feeling, my nervousness, I reported it to law enforcement and told them that in my gut something felt wrong, and I just asked them to follow up.
Okay. Now, somewhere in here, did you learn that JJ and Tyler were missing?
Yeah. As things progressed and I came to my opinion about who it was that shot at me, I started to try to be proactive and helping get information, doing whatever I could. And in that process, we found out that no one had seen from Tylee or JJ.
Okay. Your Honor, the state is going to ask the court for the admission of State's Exhibit number 5. It has some additional stickers on it that aren't relevant to this hearing, but the sticker is on the back at State's Exhibit 5, which is a self-authenticating document, which is the birth certificate for Tylee Ryan, showing a date of birth of 9/24/2002. And, Your Honor, we did not make extra copies of that because it's in an evidence envelope. I certainly can if the court wants.
I've had an opportunity to review that, so. All right, so to be clear, it is marked previously with Exhibit 4 stickers, but this is State's Trial Exhibit 5.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, would you show the witness? Okay. And just for the record, what does that document reflect?
It says Tylee Ryan.
Your Honor, I'm going to object here. I don't think he has personal knowledge of anybody can just read the document.
Well, and I understand the document. First of all, it's not been admitted yet.
Oh, I apologize.
So let's figure out where we are with that.
I apologize. I thought the court had admitted it. The state moved for the admission of State's Exhibit 5.
Any objection?
As to the document being
Being admitted.
a birth certificate, we have no objection to the fact that it's a birth certificate.
Okay, so Exhibit 5 is admitted. And then you can continue with your questioning now that it's been admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. On State's Exhibit 5, which has been admitted, what's the date of birth listed for Tylee Ryan?
9/24/2002.
Your Honor, the State also at this time would offer to the court State's Exhibit number 6. I would give an opportunity to both give it to the court and to ask the witness to look at it. Original on top, court copy underneath.
I think again I have the original now.
I think they probably all have stickers, Judge. One should say the word original on it.
Okay, mine does not. So
Okay, good.
set the sticker. Thanks.
All right, thanks. Thank you. May I proceed, Judge?
Yeah, well, again, also this has been offered now, but not yet admitted.
Well, I was going to have the witness identify it first, but I wanted to give it to you before
Okay.
we did that.
Go ahead.
Okay. Do you recognize State's Exhibit number 6?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What is it?
It's a picture of Tylee from her Instagram.
Okay. And is it true and accurate picture of Tylee in her teenage years?
Yeah.
Okay. Move for the admission of State's Exhibit number 6.
Any objection?
May I volunteer an aid?
You may.
You indicate that this is a photograph of Tylee from her Instagram, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you recognize that?
I'm friends with her on Instagram.
You're friends on Instagram with her?
Yes.
Okay. And you saw this pop up on your Instagram?
Yes, I have.
Okay. You didn't take the photograph?
No, I did not.
Okay. You don't know if it's been photoshopped or, I mean, it looks like her, right?
Yes.
But you're not positive that whatever's on the photograph or in the photograph is legitimate. You weren't there when the photograph was taken.
I was not there when this photograph was taken.
Your Honor, the only objection I have is that it's not an original. We don't know who the photographer is. We don't know if it's been photoshopped. We don't know if it's been altered in any way.
All right, understood. Response?
Your Honor, that's not the foundation for the admissibility. If defense counsel's concerns, they go to the weight, not necessarily the admissibility. This witness has said he is familiar with the person who's in the picture, he's familiar with her Instagram, and he knows whether it's a fair and accurate depiction of Tylee Ryan.
All right, I've considered that objection. I think what we have here is it will be admitted for illustrative purposes in terms of evidentiary value without further foundation about who precisely or when took the picture or where. If we're going beyond that, I'd have concerns, so it is admitted for the purpose of demonstrating who is shown in the picture.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Is the machine on? Thank you. Thank you. Is that the picture of Tylee?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you indicated that you were aware that JJ and Tylee were missing in the fall of 2019, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever learn whether JJ and Tylee had been found?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Where were you when you learned that JJ and Tylee had been found?
I was in my parents' home in their garage.
Okay.
I'm sorry, parents home there.
Sorry, just a second. I was in my parents' home in their garage.
Okay. All right. And when you became aware of this issue, did you travel somewhere?
I did. It was the day before my wedding. They weren't certain, so I had my wedding.
Okay.
And then the next day I came up to Rexburg.
Okay, what date was that?
Would have been June 11th.
Okay, of what year?
Or June. Of 2020.
Okay. What happened once you got in Rexburg?
I drove up. I didn't know why, but I just felt like I should come up, and so I came up, and I met with Larry and Kay and Woodcock, and
did law enforcement ask you to do anything?
yes, they had asked me if I could identify JJ.
And did you do that?
Yes, I did.
How did that happen?
I drove to a place where they showed me some pictures of him and asked if I could identify him, and I did.
Okay. And those were images showed you by Rexburg police officers and FBI agents, correct?
Yes.
Okay. One moment, please, Your Honor. I want to ask you a couple of quick questions to make sure I didn't ask confusing questions. To be clear, what date were you shot at?
October 2nd,
Of what year?
2019.
Okay. And then over the next month or so, you did Google searches?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember when you saw evidence that Tammy Daybell had died?
I want to say that I saw it on October 21st, maybe. Might have been the 19th. I can't say exactly. It's been a few years since then.
Okay.
I should have reviewed that. I apologize.
Sorry. Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Thomas, will you be conducting cross?
Yeah, sure.
All right, you can do so.
Just really quickly, I want to follow up on what Ms. Smith had said. You said on October the 2nd, you were shot at, and then over the next few months, you did Google searches? Is that what you said?
Over the next few months, there was times I did Google searches, yes.
And what were those Google searches about?
Well, the one I think she was referring to was I searched for Chad Daybell's name to figure out who he was and try to get more information on him.
Okay. So you and your then wife, Melanie, were having some issues back in 2018, end of 2018, right? Is that right?
Can you define issues?
Well, I mean, at some point you got divorced, right?
Yeah, but in 2018, I wouldn't say that we were at a point where we were looking at divorce.
Okay. When did that happen? When did the divorce thing come up? In early 2019?
No, not until June of 2019 was the first time it was ever mentioned.
June of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you had gone off to a business trip and had come back?
No, I was not on a business trip.
Okay. What was it?
I took my family and we went to her parents' house.
In Arizona?
In Utah.
Your parents' house?
No, my ex's parents live in Utah.
Melanie's
parents live in Utah, and that's where we were staying, was in her parents' home.
Oh, I see. Okay. And at that point, she said something about she had some issues with you, one of them being that she said that she thought that you were homosexual?
Correct.
And was that based on, what was that based on? Was there any basis to that?
She told me that God had told her.
God had told her that you were homosexual?
Yes.
Okay. It had nothing to do with video that one of your friends had posted on Facebook with you being at the Pink Pony dancing around?
Correct.
Okay. That was something different?
The only thing that happened with that was after a long argument. I asked her to give me some logical reasons because it didn't make any logical sense. And the only thing she could think of was that she had seen a video of me dancing with someone at a Pink Pony Club, which was available to anybody to see on Facebook. It was just public.
And where's the Pink Pony?
Objection, Your Honor. I understand this is cross, but it's getting pretty far afield.
All out at this time. It's proper cross.
It's in Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Okay. And then as we indicated, October 2nd, you believe you were shot at, and you believe that the Jeep that held the gun that was shooting at you was a Jeep Wrangler?
Yes.
And you believe that to be Tylee's Jeep Wrangler?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you indicated that you had actually tried to follow that Jeep Wrangler, is that right?
For a few seconds, yes.
Okay. And did you get the license plate?
I was not able to get the license plate.
How far away from the Jeep Wrangler were you?
At that point, I was very far away. It was, I barely saw it. It was over at the corner of the neighborhood, and I was very far in a distant corner. I just saw the Jeep had come around that angle, and it turned right around and went the other way.
So how far away was the shot that you think came from? You think it came from the Jeep Wrangler? How far away was the Jeep Wrangler from your car when the shot was made?
The car was parked probably a little further than the distance of where you're at to me.
Me to you?
Yeah, a little bit further.
30 feet, 20 feet?
Somewhere in there.
Okay. And you indicated that only probably 5 people knew where you had lived at the time?
Yes.
And you don't believe this to be a stray bullet or something other than you're pretty positive that this came from that Jeep?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see a muzzle flash from the Jeep?
I saw what looked like, as I described before, a silencer. But I can't say that I saw the muzzle flash.
And was that in your rear view mirror?
No, it was straight in front of me.
Straight in front of you?
Yeah, I was looking straight at it.
Okay. So you saw a silencer, but you didn't see any type of flash when the shot was taken?
I can't say for certain that I did.
Okay. It's possible that that shot came from somewhere else?
No.
Okay. You indicated, and I think counsel for the state and I were both somewhat taken aback when you said that you knew the VIN number of the Jeep, and you indicated that you were the insurance agent on that Jeep.
I was no longer the insurance agent, but I ran it for Charles. He had given me the information.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he wanted me to price shop, so he gave me the VIN number for each of the vehicles that they had.
And when was that?
A few months earlier, maybe around April.
Okay. And he had done that in an email or a text or something like that?
Yeah, it was just in my text.
Okay. Do you have that text still?
I'm not sure if it was a text or if it was an email. Honestly, I'm not sure exactly how I got that VIN, but I know he gave it to me. He may have emailed it.
Go ahead.
I'm not certain which way he gave it to me.
Did you turn that information over to the police or to the prosecutor?
I did, yes.
That email?
No, I turned over all the VIN number to the detective at the time.
And they didn't ask you how you got the VIN number?
It was a long time ago. I can't tell you for certain. I just told him the VIN number.
Okay. You indicate that you were rereading some emails from Charles to yourself at some point. Did you turn those emails over to the prosecutor or to the police?
I did, yes.
Okay. And what were those emails about?
The emails were from Charles to the rest of the family, and then some of them were, in his concerns about what he thought was going on in his relationship with Lori as they went through their breakup. And separately, there were other emails that were kind of his evidence that he was giving us of these groups that she was meeting with.
I'm a little bit confused because you indicate that you were rereading emails. I thought, and maybe this is me, I thought they were from Charles to you, not to his family.
I am part of his family. He sent them to all of us.
Okay, so these were group emails that you were a part of the group email.
Correct.
Oh, I see. Okay. When you found out that they had found the remains of Tylee and JJ, you indicate that you had a wedding on, looks like June the 10th, and then you went up to Rexburg on June the 11th. Is that right?
Yes, I believe it was the 11th. Might have been the 12th. I didn't review my notes on that either, so I should have.
Okay. And you indicate that you met with Kay and Larry Woodcock?
I did, yes, that morning.
Did you meet with anybody else?
No, I talked to law enforcement over the phone.
Talked to law enforcement over the phone while you were in Rexburg?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't talk to law enforcement over the phone while you were still in Utah or Arizona or where you were living at the time?
Are you talking about on that specific day?
Yeah. Or the day before, or,
I can't recall specifically if I met with them. I don't think I did, but I might have met with them in person besides the phone call. I did meet with them in person when I looked at the pictures.
Okay. And so then you said that law enforcement asked you if you could identify Tylee and JJ?
Just JJ.
Just JJ. And so what was that conversation like? I mean, they didn't ask somebody like Kay or Larry or somebody who was closer to JJ? Or they just came to you?
I mean, I think I was as close to JJ as Kay and Larry. We were all family. They had initially asked Larry, but it's a pretty overwhelming task to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it was with his health where it was, if it was something he was up for, so I said I would.
So you were there when they were having the conversation with Kay and Larry about who was going to identify JJ?
I was there after the conversation and talking to them.
Oh, okay. All right. I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Will there be any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, that'll conclude the testimony of this witness then. Thank you, Mr. Boudreaux.
Thank
You
you.
can go ahead and step down from the witness box.
Your Honor, quick question. Mr. Boudreaux does not live in this. Mr. Boudreaux does not live in this state. Is he released from his subpoena?
Any objection?
We're not going to recall him.
Okay,
We don't have any objection.
very well. You can be released from your subpoena as well then. Thank you for appearing and testifying.
All right, so that was Brandon Boudreaux's testimony, April 2023, of Lori Daybell, her first trial for JJ, Tylee, and Tammy Daybell, Chad's wife. So some high-level notes that I took. He had 4 kids with Melanie, their names. He tells their names and their ages. He was married in 2008. He divorced a little over 10 years after that, which would have been 2018. And he goes on to say when they actually started to go through their divorce. Melanie's mom passed away when she was young. Brandon lived with Lori and Charles for a while. Then he talks about JJ and Braxton. So Braxton is his oldest child, Brandon's oldest child. So when JJ would come over, Braxton and JJ would hang out and they would play. He says he watched Tylee grow up. When Tylee turned 8, she decided to get baptized, and Charles wasn't comfortable doing that. So Brandon stepped in. He says he got along really well with Charles, and we found that out from the Charles Vallow's. Let's see, Lori and Alex's oldest sister. Yes, is Melanie's mom. Thank you, Aaron. So we saw that in Charles's trial that Brandon and he got along really well. Let's see. They spent the holidays together, the Coxes and the Boudreaux, and the last one that he spent was 2018, Christmas of 2018. What was different at that point was that Melanie Gibb was there, and he had never met. So he said there were other people that were there that he hadn't met. Now the other Melanie, his wife Melanie, Melanice, as therapist likes to call her, because that's a great way to remember her. Her religious level was low at first, and then he was always pushing her to go to church, right? So, but then fall of 2018, Melanie also became more passionate and was going to these things called firesides. Now, Lori was at these firesides, but Charles was not. Melanie made it clear that he was not invited. JJ and Charles would come over, and he says JJ had a high energy level. He said he was just like basically a big kid, just like JJ just had so much energy, and he just didn't quite know, I guess, how to handle it. But Braxton, who's Brandon's son, kind of took it upon himself to take care of JJ, or watch after him. So Brandon's grandfather passes away, and Melanie didn't want to have anything to do with it. She didn't want to go to the funeral. She didn't want to have anything to do with it. So after that, they had a talk, and Melanie says that God has revealed some things. One of those was that Brandon was hacking Lori's computer, and he's like, I don't know how to hack. That's not what I am. I think he's a sales guy. He does real estate, I believe. And that he was accused of being a homosexual. So we've heard that before, but now here it is coming out in this testimony. Thank you, Hellcat gifting 5 Trial TV Live memberships. Thank you, Itty Bitty, Hector's mom, Melissa, and Lauren, and Nikki. Thank you so much for that, Hellcat. That is very generous. And again, thank you last night for your very generous donation through Venmo. We really appreciate that so much. Thank you. So he texted Charles and Lori on June 26th about this. Lori, of course, never replied, but Charles did. So the last time he talked to Charles, he told him he was sorry. He didn't believe him. He's sorry that he didn't believe what Charles was saying about Lori and Melanie, right? Charles was on all of this. He was on to all of this. And he was sorry that he never got a chance to say, Well, he did say that he was sorry, but that was the last time that they had a chance to talk. So they started mediated divorce right after his grandfather's funeral. He said around the 1st of July of 2019. Then October 2nd, somebody shoots at him. That was objected to for relevance. Then that gets that comes in. It's it's the judge allows that to come in. So he talks about that. He went to the gym. Now this is what Monday's trial is going to be all about, right? Him getting shot. So he went to the gym. He comes home. This gray green Jeep without a tire on the back. Somebody shoots him. Somebody puts a gun out. He sees a silencer. Somebody shoots at him. And I'm sure we'll hear all about this next week. Charles had given him the VIN number. So because that was Tylee's Jeep. So then Braxton provided that to law enforcement. Charles sent him emails. He noticed, so Charles is sending him emails and he notices this name. Who's this name? Chad Daybell. Who's this? So he Googles Chad's name and he sees this obituary for Tammy Daybell. He knew that Tylee and JJ were missing in the fall of 2019. He found out while at his parents' home in his garage the day before his wedding. Oh, this poor guy. And that was June 11th, 2020, he got remarried. Let's see, he traveled to Rexburg the next day to identify JJ. He was shown pictures by law enforcement, just absolutely brutal. And then October 21st or so, he said he found out about Tammy. So just absolutely just horrible, right? You hear Super Ball snoring? Yeah, she is. Here, I'll show you. That's funny. Yep. You hear her snoring? That's a little Super Ball. You hear her? Okay, let's see. Let me just continue on here. So then Cross came in. 2018, he was not looking to be divorced. June of 2019 was the first time that divorce was mentioned, as we just talked about. He took his family to Melanie's parents' house in Utah. That's when the issues began about being a homosexual, and that was based on God telling Melanie this. Then they bring up this video photo of him dancing with somebody at the Pink Pony, which is in Gulf Shores, Alabama. I don't know what the Pink Pony is. Maybe that's a gay bar. Who knows? Don't know. He was looking. So then he talks about looking. He was looking straight at the gun barrel and he saw the silencer, but he did not see a gun flash. He felt he was close. He was as close to JJ as Kay and Larry were, but he says Larry he didn't feel like Larry would be up to identifying JJ. So. You hear? Yeah, you guys can hear. Sounds like a buzzing fly. She's really snoring up a storm. She's so cute. All right. Super Bowl may need a CPAP in Northwest. Nice. All right. The Pink Pony Club. Is it? I'll look it up. Let's look. I'll play the next clip. So our next clip is Melanie, right? So now we're going to hear Melanie's testimony, and this is 52 minutes. So let me find out when this was. When did Melanie testify? If this was, let's see. Okay, so this is Chad's. Okay, this is at Chad's. I thought this was Lori's, but actually this is at Chad's trial. So that's cool. So we get to, we'll check this out. This is Chad's trial. So this was last year, basically around this time. It was like June. I'm sorry, April. May. I'll get it right yet. All right. So,
Did you come from Chad?
Sorry, guys. Sorry. All right, let me sort this out. All right. So this is Chad's. This is Chad's trial. Last year, May. I don't know the exact date that she testified. I'll look it up in a second. But this is here. Let me get rid of this. I can remove that pin. So this is Melanie testifying at Chad's trial. All right, let's check it out.
All right, the witness has been sworn. Before we begin with
Direct examination. I am going to inquire from the witness because this trial has been both live streamed and open to public access. Ms. Pawlowski, have you reviewed or watched any of the trial testimony since this case started?
No, sir.
Have you talked to anybody about the testimony they've given at trial?
No, sir.
Okay, that'll conclude my inquiry. Then you may inquire Ms. Blake on direct.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes. Melanie Pawlowski, MELANIPAWLOWSKI.
Ms. Pawlowski, do you know an individual named Lori Vallow?
Yes.
How do you know her?
She's my aunt.
Do you know an individual named Alex Cox?
Yes.
And how do you know him?
He was my uncle.
And do you know an individual named Chad Daybell?
Yes.
How do you know him?
He married my aunt, Lori.
Do you recall approximately when he married your aunt?
I believe they were married sometime in November of 2019.
And had you met him prior to Lori and he getting married?
Yes.
In relation to your relationship with Alex Cox, were you close with him?
Yes.
And how about with Lori? Were you close with her?
Yes.
At some point, did you look to Lori as a mother figure?
Yes.
And when you met, do you recall approximately when you met Chad?
I believe in November of 2018.
Did you continue to interact with Chad from that point on?
Through Lori.
So when you say through Lori, would you communicate with Chad through Lori?
She would say, Chad said to tell you this, or it would be mostly through Lori for the most part.
Would you also send messages to Chad through Lori?
Yes.
Did that include you asking Chad for guidance or advice?
Yes.
Would you say at some point you developed a close relationship with Chad?
Yes.
At some point, did you eventually begin referring to him as Dad?
Yes.
At some point, did Lori and Chad begin sharing teachings with you or their purported beliefs?
Yes.
Do you recall them sharing some teachings regarding light and dark?
Yes.
Do you recall which one of them, or if it was both of them that shared those things with you?
Both.
And when you say both, at times, were they both together when they shared those with you?
Both together and separate.
So at times just Lori would share them?
Yes.
And at times just Chad would share them, is that fair?
I don't know if I remember a time where it was just Chad. I do remember them being together and then with just Lori.
And with what Lori was teaching you, do you know where those ideas were originating from?
I believe they came from Chad.
Do you recall what they taught you or told you in relation to light and dark?
From what I remember, Chad was said to have a gift to spiritually discern, and he could see light and dark, or if a person had good intentions, but that he could see through and had that gift.
And did you ever learn about him having some kind of a tool or something that he would use to help him discern light and dark?
Yes.
What did you learn about that?
That he had a pendant or like necklace, something to that effect, that he could, like a pendulum kind of thing, where he could get an answer to something he wanted to know.
And it looks like, and just for the record, it looks like you were making a swinging motion with your hand. Is that correct?
That's what I've seen from other people that will use like a tool or something like that, I think you swing it, and if it swings one way, it means yes or no. I'm not sure exactly.
And was it your understanding that Chad always had to use that tool to discern light and dark?
From what I remember being told is that he didn't always need that. It was just something extra he could use.
At some point, did Chad and Lori teach you about castings?
Yes.
What do you recall them teaching you regarding castings?
From the basis of where it comes in the scriptures, where you raise your, actually, I don't even know if that specifically is in the scriptures, but where you raise your right hand and can cast out a dark spirit or a demon. But they would explain how to do that, and the correct way to do that, or sharing different ideas on how what that could mean.
And did they teach you who castings would be done on or for?
Yes.
And who were those individuals?
That you could do, you could cast out at any time for anybody if you feel like you're being inflicted with some type of dark spirit or a bad feeling, that anybody at any time could raise the right hand to the square and cast out.
Did you participate in any castings?
Yes.
Do you recall who those castings were done on or for?
I remember one where Lori invited us over to do a casting on Charles.
And
Or
had
for Charles.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
And you said it was done on Charles?
Yes.
Had you been told anything in relation to Charles being dark at that point?
I think at that time they believed, and Lori and Chad believed, Charles was affected by some type of dark spirit.
When you participate in a casting, is the person there? So was Charles physically present when you participated in the casting?
No.
And as part of the casting, was anything physically being done to Charles?
As I'm not
By
gonna
any of you?
understand. Oh, no.
So he's not there. No one's laying hands on him during a casting.
No.
At some point, did you learn whether or not JJ had been labeled as dark?
Yes.
And what did you learn in relation to that?
There's an objection based on foundation
And Your Honor, I'm just asking broadly if at some point she learned that.
and sober.
At some point, did you learn that JJ had been deemed dark?
Yes.
Do you recall what you learned in relation to that?
I don't remember super clearly on that, but just that at some point JJ was affected by some type of darkness.
Did you ever learn anything in relation to Tylee being labeled as dark?
Yes.
And what did you learn in relation to that?
That I believe Chad labeled her as dark.
And do you know who it was that labeled JJ as dark?
I assume that it was Chad.
And is that because Chad had the ability or...
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. It's bleeding.
Sustain.
Previously, had you learned about Chad having the ability to discern light and dark?
Yes.
In the casting you participated in, do you recall if Lori was present?
Yes.
Do you recall if Chad was present?
I believe he was.
Do you know?
I'm sorry, Ms. Pawlowski, could you maybe pull the mic a little closer? I think we're barely picking you up.
Yes, sorry.
You're welcome.
And it might be directional too if you pop it just under your chin.
Okay.
That's better. Thank
Is that
you.
better?
Do you know where the idea of castings, the way that Chad and Lori were teaching it, originated from?
Judge, could I have some foundation objection?
Your Honor, I'm asking if she knows where it originated.
Overruled.
Sorry, could you say it again?
Do you know where the idea of casting, how Lori and Chad were teaching it, where it originated from or who, with whom?
From what I remember, their teachings and their ideas were constantly changing, but I believe the original idea came from the Julie Rowe podcasts, where she would teach how to cast out, and she had a long way of doing that. And then I think they kind of both, and Chad and Lori, when I say both, kind of added their own ideas to that from there.
And we talked a little bit about Tylee, but did you know Tylee, Ryan?
Yes,
And how did you know her?
she was my cousin.
Do you recall when the last time you saw Tylee was?
I believe the last time I saw her was when she was packing up in Arizona, preparing to move with her mom and with JJ.
And do you know JJ Vallow?
Yes,
And how did you know him?
he was my cousin.
And you last saw him around that same time?
Yes.
Prior to Lori moving, do you recall Charles passing away?
Yes.
Do you recall learning of Charles passing?
Yes.
Who did you learn about it from?
From what I remember, my ex-husband pulled me into the garage and had Adam Cox, my uncle, on the phone. And he said,
I'm going to object at this point. Calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Your Honor, and I would say it doesn't go for the truth of the matter. It goes for the effect on the listener.
I'll still sustain the objection. The question was, what did she learn? And that's coming directly now from some hearsay, so it's sustained.
So you learned from Adam Cox.
Judge,
Yeah.
the witness is being led. Objection.
I'll sustain that as well. That was a leading question. Strike the answer.
Who did you learn? Who told you about Charles passing?
I remember Adam Cox told me, my ex.
I'm going to object at this point. The response calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
You can continue.
My uncle Adam Cox, I remember, was on speaker on my ex-husband's phone, and he said Charles had been murdered.
Judge, I'm going to move to strike. I previously objected.
That's sustained. The answer is stricken.
At some point, did you speak with Lori about Charles' death?
Yes.
Do you recall what she told you regarding Charles' death?
Yes, I remember I went to her home, and her and Tylee were still shooken up from it, but they explained that there was some type of fight that my uncle Alex got into with Charles, and that Alex shot Charles.
Were you aware if Chad had ever designated Alex to have a certain role in this life?
Judge, I'm going to object. There's lack of foundation.
Overruled.
You can answer if you know.
I'm not sure specifically what that was, but probably designated something.
Good.
Did you ever talk to Alex about Charles' death?
Yes.
What did Alex tell you?
He told me that Charles had become enraged and that he got into a physical fight with him, that there was a baseball bat involved, and that Charles had hit Alex in the back of the head with a baseball bat, and then he ended up shooting him with his gun that he had.
And this took place prior to Lori moving to Rexburg, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you ever talk to Lori about why she was moving to Rexburg?
I don't know if she told me she was moving right off the bat. She was kind of, I just remember when she was moving, she was telling everybody different things, kind of where she's moving, or that she was needed to be protected and had to protect the kids, that she was going into hiding.
So she mentioned needing to be protected?
Yes.
Who else moved with her, if you know, when she left to Rexburg?
She took Tylee and JJ, I believe, with her when she moved to Rexburg, and Alex Cox helped them move.
Did Alex Cox also move?
Yes.
At some point after they moved to Rexburg, did you end up visiting them?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately when that would have been?
I believe it was the end of September. On a weekend when I wasn't with my children, I flew up to visit Lori.
Where did you stay when you were in Rexburg?
I stayed at the apartment that Lori was staying at.
When you arrived, did you see JJ?
No.
Did you,
Judge, I'm going to object on the basis if we could just have some foundation as to time and date.
Your Honor, she said one of the last weekends in September.
I'll overrule it.
And to clarify, was this of 2019?
Yes.
When you arrived, was JJ there?
No.
Was Tylee there?
No.
Do you recall if Melanie Gibb or David Warwick were there during your visit?
I don't remember them being there during my visit, from what I remember.
Did you ask Lori where Tylee was?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
I got a few different answers, but one I remember clearly was that she was with a friend from college at BYU, and that she was kind of doing her own thing. But that's one of the main answers that she would give.
Did you ask where JJ was?
Yes.
What did she tell you about JJ?
She said she had hired a nanny there in the area, and that the nanny helped a lot with JJ.
Prior to going up there to visit, had you spoken with Lori on the phone?
Yes.
Did you ever hear Tylee or JJ in the background?
Not that I remember.
During that visit, did you see Chad Daybell?
I don't remember if I did or didn't.
In October, do you recall going on a trip with Lori?
Yes.
Where did you go?
To, sorry, you said October?
Yes, October.
We went to Hawaii.
Do you recall going somewhere with her prior to traveling to Hawaii?
Yes.
And where was that?
Missouri.
When you went to Missouri, was Tylee with you?
No.
Was JJ with you?
No.
Did you ask Lori where they were?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
I think she said that the nanny was helping with JJ, and I don't think Tylee at the time needed like a babysitter. She was old enough to kind of be independent. Or maybe it could have been too that Tylee was helping with JJ. I can't remember exactly.
Did you ever hear Lori on the phone with them while you were in Missouri?
No.
And then you said you traveled to Hawaii with her in October as well?
Yes.
And again, is this October of 2019?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately what part of October, what time in October you went to Hawaii?
I believe it was in the middle of October.
Was JJ with you in Hawaii?
No.
Was Tylee with you in Hawaii?
No.
Did you ask Lori where they were?
I believe I did. I probably would have, yes.
And do you recall what she indicated to you?
I don't. Probably one of the same answers she had been.
Judge, I'm going to move for objection, speculation. She answered the question.
Sustained.
Did you ever hear Lori on the phone with JJ or Tylee while you were in Hawaii?
No.
Did you hear her on the phone with Chad Daybell?
I heard her on the phone, but she would put headphones in, so I never knew who she was talking to.
Did you know the nature of Chad and Lori's relationship?
Somewhat, or I thought I did. Now I have different ideas, but
at the time, did you think they were really close?
Yes.
Do you know, or did you observe them talk on the phone a lot?
I'm going to object at this point without some foundation.
Over.
You can answer if you know.
Can you ask that again?
Do you observe them talk on the phone a lot?
Lori always had headphones in, but I assumed.
Judge, I'm going to object. Calls for speculation.
Well, the answer is so it's sustained.
Did Lori ever tell you that she would talk to Chad?
Yes.
Did Lori ever tell you that she would exchange text messages with Chad?
I assumed she texted with Chad. I don't think she ever. I mean, probably. She probably would say, I texted Chad and he said this.
And she would give you messages from Chad, correct?
Yes.
So you knew, based on what she was telling you, she'd been in communication with Chad.
Yes.
Did something happen back in Idaho while you were in Hawaii?
Yes.
And what was that?
Tammy Daybell passed away.
How did you learn that information?
Audrey, who was staying with us.
Judge, I'm going to object. It's going to call for hearsay.
Same.
At some point while you were there, you learned of Tammy's passing, though?
Yes.
How did Lori seem to be?
She, from what I could tell, seemed in a state of shock, just surprised.
Did Lori head back to Idaho after that?
Yes.
Did you head back to Idaho right away?
No, I stayed longer.
Was someone else supposed to go on the trip with you and Lori to Hawaii?
I think I found out later that Alex was going to come with us on that trip.
Why didn't Alex go?
Lori said Chad had something that he needed help with.
At some point, did Chad or Lori talk to you about the Church of the Firstborn?
Yes.
What, if anything, did they indicate in relation to Chad's role with the Church of the Firstborn?
That Chad believed he was to help organize and learn more about the Church of the Firstborn.
Did Chad and Lori ever share with you what they believed their mission in this world to be?
I believe it was to help with the second coming of Jesus Christ.
And we'd talked about the dark and light and you turning to Chad for advice. Were those some of the things that you would ask Chad if someone was dark or light?
Yes.
At some point, did you learn a different term for people that were possessed?
Yes.
And what was that term?
Zombie.
Do you recall who introduced that term to you?
I believe it was Lori.
At some point, did Chad or Lori also talk to you about what it meant if someone was possessed or became a zombie, where the actual person would go?
Yes.
What did you learn in regards to that?
So that there was some type of darkness that you couldn't cast out. And so if this, that the Lord in his due time would have to take, that person would pass away because this darkness was too much or something like that.
So if someone were to be possessed and with a strong enough entity, essentially the body would have to die.
Judge, that's leading. Calls for speculation.
That's a sustained on leading.
If someone became too dark, would the body have to die?
Judge, leading.
Overruled.
I believe so. That I think that was their idea, that they would pass away because they couldn't have this darkness inside them, or that it overtook them.
And do you know where that idea originated from, or with who?
Judge, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
The zombie idea, or the
idea that the body would have to expire.
I'm not sure where it originated, but I believed it to be Chad.
At some point, did you have conversations with Chad and Lori about law enforcement?
Yes.
What did they tell you in relation to law enforcement?
They told me that law enforcement was corrupt and that they were after them and that they couldn't be trusted.
Did they tell you anything in relation to whether or not to speak with law enforcement?
Yes.
And what did they tell you?
They told me don't speak with law enforcement.
Judge, can I have some foundation?
Overruled.
Objection.
At some point, do you recall if specific law enforcement officers were identified as dark by Chad and Lori?
Yes.
Who were those officers?
Detective Aramisio and I want to say Detective Hope. Is that? I'm not sure if that's right. There was somebody who was related to Tammy's family, I think.
And those are the two you specifically remember being named?
Yes.
At some point, did Chad, well, let me back up. Where were you living in November of 2018?
I moved up
Or
to
2019, excuse me, November of 2019.
I moved up to Rexburg the first week in November of 2019.
Were you also living there in December of 2019?
Yes.
At some point, did you learn JJ and Tylee had been declared missing?
Yes.
Did Chad tell you anything in relation to where you should be living?
I remember that he said that Madison County wasn't safe and to wait until the whole thing blew over, but that I should move away out of that county for the time being.
And was this after the children had been deemed missing?
Yes.
Did you have occasion to observe Lori and Alex together?
Yes.
What did you observe about their relationship?
That they, from what I could tell, just had a playful, fun sibling relationship, would help each other out as brother, sister.
Would Alex do what Lori asked?
I'm not sure everything she's asked him, but for the most part, he would help her if she needed his help with something.
Did you have an opportunity to observe Alex and Chad together?
Yes.
What did you observe about their relationship?
Alex admired Chad and looked up to him like a brother.
Would Alex do what Chad asked him to do?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
I believe he had enough trust in Chad that he would listen to him.
And you talked about learning Alex stayed behind from Hawaii because Chad needed his help with something?
I believe that's what Lori said, that he was going to come with us, but ended up not working out.
When law enforcement were looking for the children, did you observe anything about how Alex seemed to feel about that or behave?
He seemed calm and normal, just collected, his normal self.
And did Alex tell you anything in relation to how Chad reacted to law enforcement getting involved?
I don't remember who told me, but it was...
Object calls for speculation. It's a hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you ever talk to Chad about concerns you had regarding tracking devices?
Yes.
What do you recall about that?
Chad reached out and told me that my ex-husband was following me and had put a tracking device on my car.
Did that turn out to be true?
Yes.
Did that make you trust him more?
Chad?
Yes.
It validated a lot of the things he was saying, for me at least.
I may have just a moment.
You may.
I have no further questions.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Blake. All right. Cross-examination, Mr. Pryor.
Good morning, Ms. Pawlowski.
Good morning.
I want to start off with the trip to Hawaii. Can you tell me when approximately you and Lori went to Hawaii?
I don't know the exact dates, but it was towards the middle or end of October.
And how long of a trip did that detail?
I believe it was a week, right around a week or 10 days, maybe.
Do you have any recollection of Lori ever leaving in that relative period for a longer trip to Hawaii, like 2 months or longer?
During the month of October?
No, in 2019, 2020.
After, I guess if this answers your question, like after December when they left to Hawaii?
Well, I'm referencing a time when JJ was with Charles and Lori went to Hawaii for some time during that period. You remember that?
I'm not sure how long she went to Hawaii for.
February and March of 2019. Do you recall that?
I'm not sure what dates it was.
Okay. I want to go over a little bit of a procedural history so I get some context as to where you were living. So in November of 2018, where were you living?
2018, I was living in Gilbert, Arizona.
And you were close to Lori and Lori's residence as well?
Yes.
Okay, how close?
If I remember right, she was living in her Chandler house, so probably 10, 12 minutes.
And in November of 2018, did you at that time know a person by the name of Melanie Gibb?
Sometime in 2018, I think was when I was introduced to Melanie Gibb.
Do you remember when in 2018?
I think towards in November sometime.
Did you participate in go to a seminar in 2018 with Melanie Gibb and Lori?
There was one Prepare People event that I attended, and I believe, I don't remember if she was there, but Chad was speaking at it.
Okay. And prior to that time, are you aware whether Lori had been introduced to Chad prior to November of 2018?
I believe she had already met him by November 2018.
Oh, okay. And you had already met Melanie Gibb at that time as well?
I believe so.
And you traveled to this Preparing the People conference?
It was in my city, or just in Mesa, I believe.
And Preparing the People, explain to me what that is.
It was my first time attending. I didn't know much about it, but Chad was speaking amongst a few other people, and it was like a mostly LDS based ideas of the second coming, or how to prepare for the end of times.
Okay. And thank you for bringing that up. These Preparing the People conferences, these gatherings are based on your LDS faith. Is that right?
Objection, Your Honor, misstates the testimony.
Sustain.
Okay. Based on ideas of LDS faith.
Some of the ideas there were LDS based.
Okay. And when you said the idea about the second coming,
Yes.
is that one of the ideas that's LDS based?
Yes.
Okay. So these Preparing the People conferences are not anything that's inconsistent with being a member of the LDS Church. Is that right?
Not that I saw.
Okay. And you were there for the conference, right?
Yes, I went to that one conference.
Now, I came across some information on something called Seven Gatherers. Remember that?
It doesn't really ring a bell.
Okay. And you don't recall being involved with an organization called the Seven Gatherers with Melanie Gibb and Lori and Saluma Pastenes?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying.
Overruled.
Do you recall being involved in an organization called the Seven Gatherers with Melanie Gibb, Saluma Pastenes, Lori, and yourself?
I don't remember being a part of a group called the Seven Gatherers.
Okay. Now, you previously testified that, well, I'll ask it this way. The vast majority of the information that you received about Chad came only from Lori. Is that fair?
Yes, most everything came through Lori.
So you didn't confirm any of this with Lori. You basically took your aunt's word when she said Chad talked about these various topics. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. And when Lori talked about moving from Arizona up to Idaho, you indicated that she wasn't particularly clear actually where she was going to move at that point. Would that be fair?
Yes.
In fact, there was a discussion with Lori at the time after Charles's death that she talked about living with Melanie Gibb. Do you recall that?
I didn't know she planned to live with Melanie Gibb.
She never told you that?
That doesn't sound familiar at all.
Okay. So if Lori were to make a representation that she would be...
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying.
Sustained.
And move to strike.
Stricken.
So this idea of light and dark, you originally mentioned that the light and dark is, well, I guess I would like you to clarify. Are you saying that the mentioning of light and dark is something that's within the LDS faith in terms of the scriptures?
It does talk about light and dark in the scriptures.
Okay. So that was not a unusual or a new subject to you as part of being of the LDS faith. Is that right?
I didn't have a great grasp on it, but
Okay.
from what I understood it, the basis came from the scriptures.
Okay. Now, did you ever speak directly, and I mean face to face, to Chad about the children?
Are you referring to Tylee and
Tylee and JJ.
I don't know if I did.
Okay. So, so any sort of information that you received about what Chad may have said, quite frankly, almost all of it came from Lori Vallow, did it not?
Most of it came from Lori Vallow.
Okay. You mentioned the name Julie Rowe. That name has come up previously. How do you know Julie Rowe?
I've never met Julie Rowe.
Do you know anything about what Julie Rowe does for an occupation?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Overruled.
You
I
mentioned-
believe she had a set of podcasts where she would talk about spiritual beliefs.
Okay. Did you ever attend any of her gatherings?
No.
And as far as Melanie Gibb, did you ever participate in any of Melanie Gibb's podcasts?
No.
Okay. Now, this idea of casting, you mentioned the idea of casting. Was that casting also part of your LDS faith?
It talks about casting out in the scriptures. I wasn't very familiar with it, but it,
Okay. So when we're talking about it talks about castings talked about in the scriptures, we're talking about the LDS scriptures, are we not?
yes.
Okay. And then I want to ask you a little bit about the term energy work. Are you familiar with that term?
Yes.
And what does that mean?
I think some people believe in doing different types of energy work.
And
I guess
what,
I don't
give me
know
an
exactly
example of the
what it
type of
means.
what type of energy, what would be an example of a type of energy work?
I'm not super familiar on it, but from people I've met that do energy work, they will either almost like a reading.
Okay.
They'll say if you have certain cords attached or certain connections to like your ancestors.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it kind of does. But the term of vibrations, have you heard that term before?
Yes.
And what is vibrations?
I believe in energy work there that you could be on a higher or lower vibration, like a frequency.
And that frequency is used for what?
I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm not super familiar on frequencies.
Would it be fair to say that some of this energy work is to be able to communicate with other entities?
Yes.
Okay. It could be used to communicate with the dead, right?
Yes.
Ancestors.
Yes.
Okay. And did you ever participate in energy work with Lori and Melanie Gibb?
I didn't really know a whole lot about energy work. From what I remember, I think Melanie Gibb was more familiar with it. So I would listen to their ideas, but I don't know if.
Right. And your recollection is Melanie Gibb was the one who was instructing you and Lori about the different aspects of vibrations and energy.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying. These are facts, not in evidence.
Sustained.
Move to strike.
The question is stricken.
Would Melanie Gibb teach you about this vibrations and energy work?
I don't remember talking a lot with Melanie Gibb about vibrations or energy work.
You do have a recollection, though, that Melanie Gibb was more versed in the understanding of
Objection,
energy.
Your Honor, misstates testimony.
Overruled.
You do have a more distinct recollection of Melanie Gibb teaching you about the different aspects of energy work, right?
I don't have a distinct memory of talking about all the different aspects.
Okay.
of
But
it.
she was well versed in it.
Right.
I'm sorry, Judge.
Cutting her off before she's done, please. You can complete your answer.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't think I was going with that.
All right, I'll re-ask it. I apologize for interrupting
Okay.
you. I've got it in here and I want to bring it out and it's coming out too fast, so I'll try to slow down. Melanie Gibb had a better understanding of this vibrations and energy work than you did.
I believe so. Yes.
And this was something that were you aware of whether she went to remote camps and talked about this energy work?
Yes, she told me she went to camps and different things for that.
Okay. And when did she tell you that?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Overruled.
I don't remember, but I think it would be sometime maybe in 2019 or 2018.
Okay. And at that point, was it your understanding that Melanie Gibb was teaching this energy work or at least instructing it to people at these remote camps?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
It sounded like she was maybe teaching at those classes or at if there were camps or meetings, whatever she was attending.
And again, this was in 2018, 2019?
I'm not sure, but I lean towards 2019.
Okay. Now, this idea of this term zombie, that was a term that you heard from Lori Vallow, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You never had Chad walk up to you and use the term zombie, did you?
I don't know if he, I guess I would say I assume he used that term with Lori together.
Okay, and you're assuming that because all of the information that you got regarding Chad Daybell came directly from Lori Vallow's mouth, right?
Objection, Your Honor, misstates prior testimony.
Sustained.
All of the information about zombies that you learned came from Lori Vallow, did it not?
I don't know if it all came from Lori Vallow. I believed it to come from Chad.
Okay, and what are you basing that it came from Chad on? Chad never told you that, did he?
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Overruled.
Chad never told you or used the word zombie in front of you, did he?
I can't remember a time that he did, but I.
And again, this reason for when you went to Hawaii, I believe that was in October. The reason you felt Alex stayed behind is because Lori told you Chad needed Alex to help him with something. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't hear that from Chad telling you he needed help from Alex, right?
No.
Okay. Was there anything unusual that you observed with Alex and Lori's personal relationship?
Not that I observed, no.
Okay. Would it have been a habit of Alex that when Lori moved to a new location, Alex would go to the same location?
No.
Okay. Alex lived in Arizona with Lori, right?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying. Move to strike.
Overruled.
Alex lived in Arizona with Lori, correct?
For a time, yes.
Okay. Alex wanted to go to Hawaii with Lori when Lori moved to Hawaii.
I don't know if he wanted to go to Hawaii.
Alex moved to Rexburg, Idaho when Lori moved to Rexburg, Idaho.
Yes, he moved with Lori.
And Alex wanted to move with Melanie Gibb and Lori when she was going to move back with them to Arizona.
Objection, Your Honor. Facts not in evidence. Counsel's testifying. Move to strike.
Sustained.
Judge, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Blake, once you're ready, you can conduct any redirect if you wish.
Oops.
Ms. Pawlowski, did Chad and Lori teach you these things?
I believe they were both present when these ideas were, that both of the ideas were from both of them.
And you were asked a little bit about castings being part of the scriptures. When you're referencing that, do the scriptures reference it the same as the way Chad and Lori were teaching about castings?
No.
What about light and dark? Do the scriptures reference light and dark in the same way Chad and Lori were teaching about it?
No, they would use it as a basis and then elaborate with their ideas.
In using that as a basis, did it draw your attention?
Yes, they had a way to explain where everything, their ideas came from and how there was a scriptural basis from it.
Did that make you more open to listening to them?
Yes.
The way they talked about zombies, have you ever seen that as part of the LDS faith?
No.
As part of the LDS faith, have you ever heard it taught that a body has to be destroyed if someone's possessed?
No.
And Alex didn't live with Lori in Arizona, is that correct?
I believe they had separate apartments.
And Judge, could we have a sidebar very quickly?
Go ahead, Ms. Blake.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think you just clarified that you believe Lori and Alex had separate apartments in Arizona, correct?
Yes.
When Lori moved to Hawaii in February or March of 2019, did Alex go with her?
I don't know.
To the best of your knowledge, did he move there?
I don't know at all.
When you talked about Alex going to Hawaii, that was for just a trip in October?
I don't remember talking about going to Hawaii with Alex. I just planned it with Lori.
And let me back up. On the trip that you'd heard Alex was intending to come, was that the October 2019 trip?
Yes.
And that was not to relocate, is that correct? It was just to visit?
To Hawaii?
Yes.
No, Lori said that he had told me he was going to join us, and then the plans changed.
And that was just a trip, though? You weren't going to remain in Hawaii?
Yes, Lori and I just planned it as a trip.
And when we talk about the light and dark, would you ask Lori to get the answers from Chad on that, if someone was light or dark?
Yes.
And did you ever learn anything in relation, and again, did you learn whether or not Charles was designated as dark?
Yes.
And was he designated as dark?
I believe so, yes.
Is Charles still alive?
No.
Was JJ designated as dark?
I believe so, yes.
Judge, this is going beyond the scope of cross.
Your Honor, is JJ still alive?
No.
Was Tylee labeled as dark?
Yes.
Is Tylee still alive?
No.
I have no further questions.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Blake. All right. That'll conclude the testimony then of Ms. Pawlowski. Is she still going to be remain under subpoena from either the state or the defense?
Your Honor, the state would ask for her to remain under just temporarily for today.
Okay. Well, where that would only be for today at the request of the state, is the defense intending to perhaps recall her in its case?
No, Judge.
Okay. Then, Ms. Pawlowski, you are excused and apparently released from any subpoena until the state would decide later and advise you when that would occur. I am going to advise you not to watch any trial testimony online or in the courtroom until you're advised that you are no longer under subpoena for this case.
Okay.
Thank you to
Thank you,
appear
Judge.
and testify. You can step down.
Boy, the last little bit of redirect there. Was Charles designated as dark? She says, I believe so. Is he alive? No. Was JJ designated as dark? I believe so. Is he still alive? No. Was Tylee designated as being dark? I believe so. Is she still alive? No. Oof. All right, I want to read this before we get to the last thing that we're going to play for you guys. John Pryor. I totally forgot about this. He was sentenced to 120 days in jail. Now, this is from November of 2012. Hold on a sec. Let me pull this up. All right. So John Pryor, who was representing Chad there. He was found guilty of felony battery for allegedly forcing himself on a woman in his law office conference room last year. An Idaho attorney, blah, blah, blah. Pryor faces, he got sentenced to 120 days, fined $1,000. He was indicted by a grand jury for felony battery with intent to commit you-know-what after being accused of attacking a 20-year-old woman who said she came to his Nampa office seeking a job and advice on a child custody case. Before the trial concluded, Pryor's lawyer told the jury during opening statements that Pryor paid the woman, who was in dire straits financially, for you-know-what. She then lied about the incident to her boyfriend. However, the woman testified before Pryor took his plea that she refused when he offered her a job and help with the custody case in exchange for having you-know-what with him. Nice guy. Nice guy. Okay. Let's get to, next up is going to be Ian. Now we're going back to Lori's first trial, and now this is Ian Pawlowski. So this is Melanie's newest husband. So first she was married to Brandon. They got divorced, as we found out. Then she married Ian. So we're going to hear from Ian now. And then we will be done for this stream, and we will go over and we'll pick up on Carlos Dominguez. All right, so this is Ian Pawlowski. And this is from November. Let's see. I'm sorry. Okay, hold on a sec. I got the wrong one. Hold on. I pulled the wrong one up. Okay. This is... Okay, May 3rd. Okay. All right, so this is from May 3rd. Okay, this is part 1. All right, so we're just going to listen to part 1. This is from May 3rd. Let me move myself over here. Okay.
But it's possible.
All right, please be seated. All right, the first matter I'll just take up is as it relates to exhibits that were just admitted. Idaho's got an administrative rule, Rule 71, which allows, if the parties stipulate, to have either dangerous or large or bulky exhibits represented by photograph. There's been a photograph admitted into evidence of the gun, which the gun itself is Exhibit 280, and those corresponding baffles, 278 and 279. I've suggested that upon looking at that rule that perhaps the parties want to agree that for purposes of the record of the case that those items would still be kept in custody of the state. However, for purposes of the record of the case could be represented by photographs. So I wanted to ask, that needs to be done by stipulation of the party pursuant to the rule. Would the state stipulate to have exhibits 278, 279, and 280 represented by photograph in lieu of the actual physical exhibits for the post-trial issues?
That would be actually the request of the state, Your Honor, so we would stipulate.
All right, thank you. Does the defense have any objection, or would I should ask better, would the defense stipulate to that?
No, the defense will stipulate, but I'm wondering if the state would stipulate to not use this particular numbered exhibit as the one they're going to use in the Chad Daybell case, so that we don't, for the appellate record, they're looking at, the photograph of whatever number this is, and confuse it with the Chad Daybell one that's probably going to be used.
And Your Honor, we may use the same exhibit, but we would not have an objection to making sure that it is numbered differently, so there is no confusion.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll stipulate.
Thank you, Mr. Thomason. We'll keep the record clear, and it would be remarked in that trial with a separate number. And we can also make an additional record in that case if it's used as an exhibit. The other matter that was to be brought up outside of the presence of the jury was a request pertaining to one or more witnesses that I believe Mr. Archibald indicated believes there may have been some violation of the court's exclusionary rule and order in this case. If you'd like to argue that at this time, Mr. Archibald, I'll hear your argument. I'll hear from the state and then take the matter under advisement during the break.
And Your Honor, our request would be that we take these separately. I think there's different potential arguments from the defense for each witness. So I think if we could take them up separately, and the first one regarding our next witness, Ian Pawlowski.
Okay, Mr. Archibald, then if you'd like to start with, the state intends to call Ian Pawlowski next. What's the issue you've got with that?
Your Honor, we received information that Melani Pawlowski, or Melani Boudreaux, who's married to Ian Pawlowski, that Melanie listened to testimony, that she read articles, all in contradiction to the exclusionary rule, that Melanie and Ian are married and came here to Boise, Idaho together. They have attorneys with them. And so we believe that Ian Pawlowski has violated the rule just because we believe he's talked to his wife. His wife, Melanie, has admitted that she's violated the exclusionary rule. So with both of the witnesses, both Ian Pawlowski and Melanie Pawlowski, would ask that the court conduct an inquiry, and if violated the rule, that they be excluded.
All right, thank you, Mr. Archibald. Any response to the argument?
Thank you, Your Honor. The state is aware of the information provided to defense. It was actually provided by the state based on information that came into our possession. However, there is absolutely no indication that this particular witness, Ian Pawlowski, has reviewed or observed or listened to any of the testimony in this case. So to simply assume that his wife may have told him about anything she learned or observed or knew is a stretch. And so based on what the state has been told by Mr. Pawlowski, we do not see that there would be any issue with the exclusionary rule and would ask that he be allowed to testify.
Okay, counsel, what I'll do is take the issue under advisement pending an inquiry after Mr. Pawlowski's been placed under oath. I'll have him brought in to be questioned outside the presence of the jury at the end of the break here before the jurors are brought back in. So if we need to go into an in-depth line of questioning with him, we can do that without the jurors overhearing. Is there an issue with any other witness, Mr. Archibald?
Those are the issues with those two witnesses. Given that looking at the clock, doesn't look like we'll get to Melanie Pawlowski, but if they call Ian first, then we can do the inquiry with him.
All right. Does the state intend to call Melanie?
Your Honor, the state may intend to call her, but we would ask to take that up separate, given the separate issues involved and before her testimony.
Okay. So right now then we'll just deal with the Ian Pawlowski issue. We'll take that up at the end of the break. I gave, I think, about 30 minutes. So why don't we come back in at about 20 till, if you can have Mr. Pawlowski here ready to be sworn, and we'll start that inquiry before the jurors are brought back in, and start that up here in a little over 20 minutes. So we'll be in recess until then.
All rise. About 1 minute.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right, we are back on the record on case CR 22-21-1624, State of Idaho versus Lori and Vallow. We are, during the afternoon break, the jurors have not returned to the courtroom yet. We had a motion relating to the court's exclusionary order in this case, argued by the parties before, or at the beginning of the break, and the court indicated it would inquire directly of the witness and allow any additional argument before the jurors are brought in. So is the state ready to call Mr. Pawlowski?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, if you can have your witness brought in, we'll have him sworn.
Your Honor, I should also note for the record, he has counsel here with him. It is Garrett Smith out of Arizona. It's my understanding that Mr. Smith was going to be here to observe and available if necessary, recognizing, though, that he is not here specifically as an Idaho licensed attorney to interject at any point in the proceedings.
All right. He's permitted to be here, and we'll have a seat assigned to him once he enters with his client.
Sir, if you approach me, please. Please stand for quick return and respond.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Mr. Pawlowski, you've been sworn. The court has entered in this case what's called an exclusionary order relating to a rule that does not allow witnesses to view or listen to other witnesses' testimony in the trial before they testify. There's been some concern that there may be an issue in regards to that order. The concern was brought forth by, well, information was provided by the state, and the defense has made an argument. So I'll have a question or two of my own for you, and then you may also be examined first by the attorneys as we sort through that issue prior to your providing testimony in front of the jurors. So there's some indication that I guess your, would you just indicate on the record who your wife is?
Melani Pawlowski.
Okay, and the information we had was that she had listened in or perhaps observed some trial testimony. Is that something you're aware of?
To my knowledge, she hasn't listened to anything. There was a point where her ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux, testified, and there's some ongoing litigation between Melani and Brandon, and so there was some information that she read, I don't know if it was headlines, that she had concerns about. I didn't really get any details. There didn't seem to be anything of substance there for her. So all I knew is that he testified.
Okay. Have you personally listened to any of the testimony that's occurred in this trial?
No.
Have you read any of it anywhere on any news report, anywhere online?
I've seen headlines, as I've scrolled through my news feeds, but I haven't read anything.
Listen to any kind of audio feed of any of the proceedings?
No.
All right, that concludes my line of questioning. Mr. Archibald, you raised the objection at this point. If you'd like to question the witness before he testifies, you can do so.
Mr. Pawlowski, you're married to the formerly known as Melani Boudreaux?
Yes.
And how long have you two been married?
Just about 4 years, 3.5 years now.
Were you in the same meeting where your wife met with FBI agent Doug Hart and prosecutor Lindsay Blake?
No, we were separate during those times.
And you came from, where do you live now?
Arizona, Mesa.
And you came here with Melanie how long ago?
We arrived on Monday.
And Mr. Pawlowski, if you could just forward
yes,
to the microphone, please.
We arrived Monday.
So this is your third day in Idaho?
Yes.
And have you and Melanie talked about this case?
Yes.
And Melanie made a statement to the prosecutor and the officer, the nail is already in Lori's coffin.
Objection, Your Honor. This is hearsay for this witness. He already indicated he was not in the room or present for any conversation.
So my question is, did you hear her say that?
No.
Is that what she said to you?
No.
Has she ever said anything like that to you?
No.
Have you said anything like that to her?
No.
Now, you brought an attorney with you, right?
Yes.
And why is that?
This is just a complicated matter, and I just feel better navigating it with an attorney present.
Are you aware that your attorney was also here with another witness?
Yes.
And did you talk to your attorney about what the other witness said?
No.
You understand that an attorney is legally and ethically obligated to tell his client everything.
Your Honor, I'm going to object here. I think that's a mischaracterization, and I think this is going well beyond the exclusionary issue that we're supposed to be dealing with.
On the first grounds there, I'll sustain that.
So you're claiming that your attorney, who was also here with another witness, did not tell you anything about what the other witness said?
Objection asked and answered.
Hasn't been answered, but go ahead. You can answer that.
Sorry, could you restate that?
You're claiming that your attorney has not told you one thing about Zulema Pastina's testimony here.
Correct.
Did you ask?
No.
He didn't tell you?
No.
you worked with FBI to record people who did not know they were being recorded, right?
Objection, Your Honor. This is getting way beyond the exclusionary.
That's sustained. The only issue at this point, Mr. Archibald, narrowed in the scope of whether or not he has been exposed to any of the trial testimony for the exclusionary order.
So, Mr. Pawlowski, you're claiming that you don't know anything about this case because you haven't listened to anything since it started 5 weeks ago.
Correct.
Did you talk to Agent Doug Hart?
Yes.
Did you talk to Prosecutor Lindsay Blake?
Yes.
Did they tell you what had happened in court?
No.
Did you ask?
No.
What did you and Doug Hart and Lindsay Blake talk about?
We discussed just the testimony that I'm going to be giving.
Okay. And so you rehearsed your testimony with them?
Correct.
I don't have anything else.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Archibald. Any questions from the state?
Your Honor, if we can have just one moment, please.
Yes.
Mr. Pawlowski, just to be clear, have you observed, either through reading any articles or recaps of testimony or listening to it, any testimony that has occurred in this trial?
Not at all.
When you met with myself and Agent Hart, did we discuss anyone else's testimony?
No.
Did we discuss the contents of anyone else's testimony with you?
No.
Did we simply go over questions that we would be asking and your potential answers?
Yes.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Blake. Upon that inquiry, the court's reviewed the rule that's been issued in this case, as well as the case of State versus Danson, 113 Idaho 746, that talks about the purpose of the exclusionary rule and indicates it's within a trial court's discretion to determine whether it's been violated or what sanctions should be imposed if it has. The court, having found no evidence based on the testimony of the witness that there has been any violation of the exclusionary rule, will overrule the defendant's objection, and the witness may be permitted to testify before the jury. So that'll be the court's ruling on that issue. This time then we'll go ahead and allow the jurors to be brought in.
Quiet, please. Jury's all present. Can I report, Your Honor?
Thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Please be seated. Okay, we're on the record. CR 22211624, State of Idaho versus Lori Vallow. The witness on the stand at this time has previously been sworn. Before we begin with his testimony before the jury, let me just indicate, Mr. Pawlowski, if you'd kind of make sure to sit forward and talk directly into that microphone, it'll help keep the record clear. Also, please answer verbally any questions asked, and try not to talk at the same time as anyone questioning you, so we keep a clear record. With that, the state can commence with the direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Wherever you are.
Would you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, Ian Pawlowski, Pawlowski.
Do you know Lori Vallow or Lori Daybell?
Yes.
How do you know her?
We met briefly right after I began dating my wife, Melanie Pawlowski.
And do you know how Melanie is related to Lori?
Melanie is her niece.
Do you know do you recall approximately the first time you met Lori Vallow?
I want to say it was between November 20th and November 25th. It was right before we went down for Thanksgiving in 2019.
And when you say when we went down for Thanksgiving, who is the we you're referencing?
So I traveled down, and then Melanie came and met me later.
And that would be Melanie that is now your wife?
Correct.
So Lori did not travel down there?
No.
And when you say down there, where were you going?
Arizona.
When you met Lori, was that a face-to-face visit?
First time, yes.
Do you recall approximately, or actually let me back up, do you know an individual named Chad Daybell?
Yes.
And do you know who he is?
He is married to Lori.
Do you recall meeting him?
Yes.
And when was that?
It was the same time I met Lori.
Did you meet him in person?
Yes.
Were they together when you met them?
Yes.
Do you recall where you met them as far as the location?
Yes. That was at the apartment just next to Melanie's.
When you met them, did you have any substantive discussions the first time?
No.
Did you come to know or learn of the relationship Melanie had with Lori and Chad?
Yes.
And what kind of relationship was that?
It was a very close, supportive relationship.
Was it so close that, in fact, you went to Lori and Chad first before asking Melanie to marry you?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately how many times you either saw in person or spoke with Lori?
It was less than a dozen.
And how about with Chad?
Fewer.
Did you have any conversations with Chad when Lori wasn't present?
Not that I recall.
Did you have some conversations with Lori when Chad was not there?
Yes.
At some point in those conversations, did Lori talk to you about her purported beliefs?
Yes.
What were some of the beliefs that she talked about?
Your Honor, I'm going to object this to vague.
I will sustain that. It's just a question about beliefs in general.
In talking about beliefs, specifically, did she talk to you about purported religious beliefs?
Yes.
And referencing those religious beliefs, what were some of the things she told you?
She discussed, there were beliefs about possession. There were beliefs about locking Satan away. Those are the two that stand out the most.
And with those references, did you ever hear her use the term casting or casting out?
Yes.
And when these conversations took place, were there other people present?
Yes.
At times, did that include Melanie?
Yes.
Was Melanie present for the majority of the conversations?
All of them.
Did you ever hear Chad talk about those same terms?
He was present. I don't specifically recall if he stated anything. Lori typically did most of the talking, but Chad was typically there and acted as a support to what Lori was saying.
Do you recall her ever talking to you about multiple probations or multiple creations?
I don't recall anything specifically about that from her, no.
And you talked about you and Melanie had headed down to Arizona. Was that for Thanksgiving of 2019?
Yes.
At some point, did the two of you return to Rexburg?
Yes.
When you returned to Rexburg, do you recall if Chad and Lori were still there?
They were not.
Do you know where they were?
No.
Had you ever been to the apartment that Lori resided at in Rexburg?
Prior to that, no.
Had you gone to her apartment when you first met her?
Yes.
And Chad was present in the apartment?
Correct.
Do you know if he was residing there with her?
I don't.
Did you see when you met her, did you ever see J.J. Vallow?
No.
Did you ever see Tylee Ryan?
No.
Did you know of their existence when you first met Lori and Chad?
Yes.
Did Lori ever say anything to you about where they were?
No.
Did you see any indication that there were children living in the apartment?
Yes.
And what indications did you see?
I saw backpacks that looked like they were for children, luggage that looked like, they were designed for kids.
Did you ever look at any bedrooms in that residence?
Yes.
And did you see signs of children there?
No.
And when you had conversations with Chad and Lori, did you ever hear Tylee or JJ in the background?
No.
Was there ever mention of Tylee and JJ in your conversations with Lori?
Not that I recall.
When Lori talked to you about these things, were you open to hearing them?
Yes.
And why was that?
I'm religious. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and a large part of our belief is faith in revelation, and that the church is a living thing. It's not done progressing. It's not done growing. And so part of that is, you have to maintain an open mind when new things come. So if I was going to learn something new, it would either be through one of the Lord's servants, or I'd receive the revelation directly. So that and at that point in my life, I was kind of going through a religious renaissance of my own. I was trying to, I had just gone through a rough divorce, and I was trying to rebuild myself. So I was open. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think so. And about how long did it take for you to determine that you were not open to the ideas being presented by Miss Vallow?
A few days.
And were there some specific things she was telling you that made it so you were no longer open to what she was talking about?
Yes.
And what were those things?
So one of those things was the possession. The people who she was saying were possessed was one of them. The rankings that were being given, people being determined as light and dark, was alarming. That sounded to me like something that could not change. It was a predetermined thing. Talking about light and dark contracts that were signed before this life. I know there were a few others, but they don't come to my mind right now.
When you talk about the light and dark, who is it that was telling you about the light and dark ranking system?
So the first time I heard about that, I want to say it was Melanie that explained it to me, as she had heard it from Chad. That was the first time.
At some point, did Lori talk to you about the light and dark system?
It was referred to in conversations, but never directly explained.
And you talked about some of the people they were saying, or excuse me, some of the people Lori was saying were possessed. Do you recall who some of those individuals were?
Law enforcement.
Did you ever hear her use the term zombies?
Yes.
Was that also in reference to some law enforcement?
Yes.
Were there specific officers that she referenced?
Yes.
Who were they, if you can remember?
Detective Hermosillo and I believe Detective Hope, if I recall correctly.
And do you know if they work with the Rexburg Police Department?
They do.
At some point, so you were no longer open to the beliefs or the religious beliefs that she was purporting to have at that point?
Right.
At some point, did something cause you concern?
There were numerous things. The point where it really turned for me was the morning after my marriage to Melanie. Melanie had dumped her fears on me. Just everything that she'd been experiencing, there's just a whirlwind there's a mess going on. And she shared everything that she thought and worried about with me. And so the morning following that, we were staying at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, and my two children, Max and Lily, were with me at the time. The next morning I got up and my daughter was gone. We couldn't find her anywhere. She was gone for about 15 minutes. We looked all over the room for her. We were calling for her. Not a sound. She was nowhere. And then finally I hear some giggling from behind a curtain, and I can see her feet underneath, and she comes out. She thought it was the funniest thing in the world. But for me, after hearing everything that I had the night before, that was terrifying. And at that point I decided I'm not going to give this a chance. I'm not going to mess with it. Something needs to happen.
And were some of the things you heard regarding Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow?
Yes.
Did you have concerns for their safety or their well-being after what you learned?
Yes.
Did some of the things deal with an attempted shooting of Brandon Boudreaux?
Yes.
Did you have concerns about you and or your ex-wife's safety based on some of that information?
Yes.
And because of that, did you end up going to law enforcement?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately when you met with law enforcement?
I want to say it was December 5th or 6th that I met with them.
And that would have been of 2019?
Correct.
And when did you say, and I may not have asked you, but when did you get married to Melanie?
It was November 30th, 2019.
So less than a week later, you were at law enforcement?
Correct.
Did law enforcement end up asking for your assistance?
Yes.
And what did they ask for your assistance with?
They asked me to just listen and observe and report back, and they also asked me to make recordings for them.
And did they instruct you to make sure that you were present and party to any conversations you were recording?
Yes.
Did you in fact do that?
Yes.
Did you produce the recordings to the police department?
Yes.
In those recordings, did Chad ever confess directly to a crime?
No.
Did Lori ever confess directly to any crime?
No.
Do some of those recordings contain some of the information you've provided here today regarding the religious beliefs Lori purported to have? Did Lori or Chad ever instruct you regarding whether or not to cooperate with law enforcement?
Yes.
And what were you instructed?
to cooperate as little as possible to avoid them. There was just kind of this arrogant, flippant attitude toward law enforcement that, that was just none of their business, and we needed to get out of town was another thing that they instructed us to do.
And did those instructions come from both Chad and Lori?
It was mostly Chad pushing us to get out of town. Both Chad had a more serious tone. Lori was kind of presented this lighthearted attitude toward cooperating with law enforcement, just to kind of avoid it.
And was part of that telling you that some of the law enforcement officers were dark spirits or zombies?
Yes.
Just one moment. And you indicated that your wife Melanie was present for these conversations as well?
Correct.
And would it be fair to say that Melanie looked to Chad and Lori as a mother and father figure?
Yes.
Do you believe that she was susceptible to what they were telling her?
Yes.
Did she at times indicate to you, or did you believe that she shared some of, or was open to these religious beliefs that they were purporting to have?
She was open to them. The way she presented them to me is, hey, this is what they're saying. What do you think?
And would you say out of the two of them, Melanie was closer to either Lori or Chad?
Absolutely closer to Lori.
I have no further questions.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Blake. Let's see who will be doing cross.
Your Honor, I'll be doing the cross, but given the fact that the state has referenced some wire or recordings, we were planning on hearing those, and we're not going to be prepared to offer those up. That's going to be a big part of my cross-examination, so I'm just wondering if the court's willing to break a few minutes early today so that we can get that onto a drive so that he can testify as to that.
And, Your Honor, can we have a brief sidebar?
Yes. All right, upon conferring with counsel in a sidebar, the defense does intend to introduce some exhibits, which may take some time. However, they're going to make a further review of that, see where they agree or disagree with the state. We may probably hear motion on that in the morning, potentially outside of the presence of the jury, to determine where that stands. In order to allow the parties to get prepared for that, I am going to find that we'll conclude for this afternoon for the day's proceedings, and so we'll just plan on starting again tomorrow. I'll also indicate tomorrow there's another hearing the court has to take up later in the afternoon, so we'll be stopping a little bit early tomorrow, probably around 3:10, no later than 3:15 for our end time tomorrow. So that will conclude the testimony for today. The cross-examination of this witness will commence in the morning before we break for the day. I will give the jurors the daily admonishment to please continue to follow the court's instruction to not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Please don't look the case up, read about it in any way. If you see it being reported in the media, please don't watch the reports, and continue to do your duty to remain impartial in this case so you can reach a verdict only on the evidence that you've seen here in court. With that in mind, we appreciate your continued service, and we will recess for the day.
All right, so thank you for joining us today on our continued deep dive into the backstory of Brandon Boudreaux and Lori Daybell. This is day 2. We'll do one more day tomorrow where we have, so that was Ian testifying at Lori's trial. Tomorrow we'll have Ian testifying at Chad's trial. So today we heard from Melanie, we heard her testimony, we heard Brandon's testimony, and we just heard briefly some of Ian's testimony. So everything kind of circles around Melanie in this case, and then of course Brandon and Lori as well. So I just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for getting us. We're up to 7,072 subscribers, so appreciate that, you guys. We're going to portal you over to our continuing coverage of California versus Carlos Dominguez. We are into day 18. I got to double check. I think we're up to day 18, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we're up to day 18 there. And yesterday was pretty good. Pretty good testimony, and we were hearing from the psychiatrists and the doctors. So with that, I will say thank you again for joining us. Thank you to Aaron, and thank you to our mod squad. Thank you to all of our chatters out there. Appreciate you all. Join us tomorrow when we will do day 3, and we will listen to Ian's testimony from Chad's trial, and we have a portal set up, so you don't have to do anything. Let me just see here. Let me see when do we have it set up for tomorrow. So tomorrow's going to be 11:30. So we're starting at 11:30. So that we're going to have to change that. Oh no, wait. Anyway, join us tomorrow. Yep. All right, so we're going to start tomorrow at 11:30, and then Carlos Dominguez will be pushed out just a little bit after that. Also, we have some really good things upcoming for you guys. We have our 1-year anniversary stream this Saturday, starting at noon. We have a fantastic guest list set up for you guys. Joining us will be Nick Starro, Sneaky Side, Joe Schmo, Recovery Addict, Broken Baker, True Crime Addict, Florida PI Sam, Trial Junkies United, Therapist You Know, and Dr. Rachel. They will all be joining us, and there is maybe one other person that has agreed, and they will be a game time decision. So fingers crossed they can join us as well. Then we also have a new series set up for you called Dead Serious, where Therapist You Know and Dr. Rachel will be joining us for that. They have a new, we're doing a new stream with them, so looking forward to that. And then we have Donna Adelson coming up, and of course, Lori Daybell starts on Monday, June 2nd. So we have a lot of really good things lined up for you guys. Hopefully you will join us for all of those and support the channel. We appreciate everything that you guys do, just being with us, giving us the love and support, chatting with us, commenting. Appreciate all of that. So I'm going to go start the stream over with Carlos Dominguez. I would hope that you guys come and join us. And if not, join us tomorrow as we continue with our pre-trial prep. It will be day 3 of our pre-trial prep with Lori Daybell and upcoming trial with Brandon Boudreaux. So until then, hopefully we'll see you over at the Carlos Dominguez stream. And if not, I'll see you guys down the road. Bye. Nope, don't want that one. I got to come over here. Okay, here we go. Bye.